It's negative in a franchise if you really want to be the true entrepreneur that goes and figures all of that stuff out. And some people are really gifted at that.
So today we talked to a guy named Jamie Warren. So Jamie is a entrepreneur who has done multiple different things in his life. Started out and thought he wanted to be in TV. Then he realized that TV wasn't really his thing, so he got into marketing, and he got to be pretty darn good at marketing. He talks about a really, really polarizing story where his business took off in a dramatic fashion. And after that, what goes up must come down. He came down into a period where he was pretty dark, and he was sitting in a group with a bunch of business owners. And honestly, it sounds like the Lord just said, hey, this is probably what you need to do next. And so he goes on a journey of owning an Iron Tribe fitness franchise in one of the best markets in the United States, Nashville, Tennessee. He talks about his family, he talks about his wife, talks about his kids. He's got a special need kids, but he's got 2 other kids too. Talk all the different things. This is a wonderful conversation that you're going to want to join in on with Jamie Warren. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. So Jamie is one of the franchise owners of Iron Tribe in Nashville. He owns 5?
Yes, 5.
All 5 Iron Tribes. Before we get into like the business and the family and the invest, all those things, tell me about where you're from. Tell me about like Jamie as a kid, growing up, parents, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so born in Montgomery.
Okay.
And moved here when I was 4 because Dad was taking a new job.
Okay.
So grew up in the Vestavia school system.
Right.
Go Rebels.
How old are you? How old are you?
51.
Okay.
So 91 high school.
You do not look 51.
Thank you. That's
No,
the whole
dead
goal,
serious.
Thomas.
I was thinking 45.
Great. So,
What did you think, Sierra? I did not think. Okay. Wow. Good job.
Well, thank you. So, hashtag why I tribe.
That's right.
This is why we Iron Tribe. Okay.
Nice.
So I want to continue to look and play 5 to 10 years younger than I actually am. So thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Such a good plug. And you will find out here in just a second why he did that, because he is a marketing guy. All right. So we are a minute and 5 seconds in and we've already gotten to this. That's awesome. So grew up in Vestavia, which is a suburb for people that are listening outside of Birmingham. That's a suburb of Birmingham. Wonderful area. Great school system.
Yes.
I mean, probably one of the best in the state.
Top 5 in the state, probably.
Sports as well.
Yes.
Every sport's good. High tax bracket.
Yes.
High tax bracket. Hard to get a great house there because it's so expensive, but a wonderful area.
Great place to grow up.
Great place.
So attended Furman University. I was one of 2 people in my high school class to go to Furman, which is a small liberal arts school in Greenville, South Carolina. Not only did I get a great degree and critical thinking, education, but met my wife there. My sister met her husband there. So Furman was great to us.
So tell me about your folks. What your folks do growing up?
So Dad was a CPA and ran what started as this tiny little firm in the late 70s that ended up being a very, very, very large regional firm today.
What's it called?
Warren Averett.
I did not know that. So Warren Averett is a gigantic firm. They've got multiple offices just in Birmingham. I had no idea. So your dad started Warren Averett?
So he is the Warren of Warren Averett. He didn't start the firm. It was a small little firm that he joined in the late 70s. In 1980, he became CEO and did that for 30-something years.
So tell me about that process. So he became CEO in the 80s or 90s. Did he, becoming CEO, he wasn't an owner, or was he an owner?
Or
partner, excuse me?
So he had come on, as a staff accountant.
Yeah.
And then he had made partner, and there were a group of partners that had kind of gotten together and said, hey, we want to take this in a different direction. And they approached the founders of the firm and basically offered to buy them out. And the rest is history.
When we say partner is another fancy way of saying equity?
Shareholder. So in professional services firms, like law firms, CPA firms, generally there is a group of founders, that have the majority equity stake in the business. And then they'll allow associates who come along and show themselves to be a great fit culturally. They're producers. They're offered a smaller percentage ownership in the firm.
Those are called partners.
Partners, yeah. Shareholders. So you hear those words, and that's generally talking about a limited equity stake in a professional services firm.
So he became partner, and then a group of those partners bought out the founders?
Right.
Okay. Right. So he is still one of the owners of Warren Averett?
He retired in 2012.
Okay.
So his name is the legacy.
Cemented forever.
Yes. But he's no longer an owner.
So when you retire as a partner, do you not keep ownership, or do they buy you out? How does that work?
So I guess every firm is different.
Yeah, sure.
And so I've not ever read the operating agreement of Warren Averett, but generally there was a time where, the ownership shares are, there's a date where, okay, it's bought out. And then there's a variety of ways that you can compensate an owner or an outgoing CEO, for their shares or for their equity in the business. Sometimes it can be a lump sum. Yeah. Sometimes it can be, deferred payments that are kind of done over the next several years. I guess any business, and I would want to do this as if I was still in the business, is you want to make sure that you're allocating an appropriate share of the firm's EBITDA every year.
Yep.
And not killing the golden goose.
No doubt.
While you're compensating, the partners who are leaving. So I imagine that, a multi-year kind of payout is typical.
Tell me about your mom.
So mom is one of the kindest and most giving people I've ever met.
Okay.
I don't know if she's taken the Enneagram, but I would bet you money she's a 2.
2. What are you?
I'm a 3 with a 4 wing,
Gotcha.
if you know about all that.
Yep.
But my mother is such a sweet and kind soul. She has spent her entire life in the service of others, not only with my sister and I, but there are hundreds and hundreds of people who have been impacted by my mom and dad with their ministry and how they've served, but specifically my mom.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So as grew up in Vestavia, dad was a executive, a wonderful, wonderful firm. When someone came up to you and said, "Hey, Jamie, what do you want to be when you grow up?" What'd you say?
Well, let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
So, Jamie, are you going to be an accountant like your dad?
Did you get that a lot?
A lot.
Huh.
Are you going to go into the family business?
Yeah.
My answer was no.
No.
Absolutely.
Why?
Not. Well, first off, you have to love the field, right?
You do. It's a made fun of field. Like people make fun of accountants.
Right. Right.
They do. No. Like
right.
There are TV shows.
Right.
About people making fun of accountants.
So, you obviously have to love the discipline. You have to be operating in the strength. I've always taught my kids the best, career, obviously listen to what God is telling you to do. But if you can nail that intersection point of marketplace demand, your skill and your passion, that's a great place to think about a career. Well, I just wasn't a numbers bean counter, kind of guy. That's just not my strength.
Just make fun of it. Bean counter.
Not my strength, but hey, nothing but respect for those who do that well.
Yeah. We got to have them.
Yeah, of course. So that was the first thing, not my jam.
Yeah.
Second thing, I knew that my entire career would always be compared to my dad's. And I felt from a very young age that it was important for me to make my own way. Amen. And I guess never wanted to live in that shadow because it's a pretty big shadow.
Oh, man. So the original question, what did you want to be?
So it was interesting when I was growing up. If you think about the journey of what interests me and everything, there was a bit of a theme. I thought about law for a while. I thought about broadcast journalism for a while, ministry for a while. And the connecting thing with all of that is this real love for people and this passion for communication.
Communication.
Yeah.
So all those things add up, ministry, the broadcast journalism, all that stuff. So when you go to Furman, what did you study?
So it's interesting. There wasn't a broadcast journalism major. And you could have created your own communications major there, but that was very early interdisciplinary, kind of create your own at that point. So I chose English. And at the time, I had aspirations of being a film director, and there's a lot of ways you can go in that direction. So I studied English because I knew if I could think and write critically, I could do a lot of different things. Now, the problem with being able to do a lot of different things is, how do you focus on what thing you're going to do? So that's really what I left with, was this very strong sense of how to communicate, how to think, write critically, and had always been very comfortable in these type situations. Big groups, small groups, a lot of theater and things in high school and performance. And so it was a great training ground that actually led to my first job, which was in film production, but I was behind the camera, not in front, And so in my 20s, I was actually able to work for a film production company, a boutique, company here in Birmingham locally. And we made really, really high-end TV commercials for ad agencies. I mean, big budget type things. And then I worked in the media and both radio and television. And so it was this great, in my 20s, it's great training ground for what I would eventually do, for the rest of my career.
Always behind the camera, or a mix of both?
A mix of both. When I changed into broadcast sales, in my late 20s, that really was where I was able to have more people-to-people, interaction.
So you said you met your wife in college. When did you guys get married?
We got married in 1997.
So how old were you?
I was 24. She was 23.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've really grown up together.
You really have. So during that process, you get out, you probably don't have a lot of money. You leave Furman. Furman's a wonderful, wonderful university. Did you play sports growing up?
So never had the height for basketball or the build for football, but I was fast. So soccer was my jam. That's what I did. I didn't play for Furman.
Yep.
Intramurals is really what I did at that point. I was kind of into other things, but I've always been, I've felt closest to God when I'm doing challenging things physically in nature.
Yep.
And so, always love soccer, always love running and hiking and being outside.
So you leave Furman, you go get these jobs doing these video production, ad sales, things like that. So tell me about that journey, like in your 20s. You're doing this stuff. What is the next step after leaving the TV journalism area?
You've probably heard it said, a lot, that you really are the sum of the five people that you hang around the most. And that has been so true in every single, chapter of my life. So I had a really good friend who had a lot of entrepreneurial inspirations, aspirations in his life. He had done a lot of things. He was kind of a click ahead of me in life.
Yeah.
And we had breakfast every Tuesday morning after a Bible study.
Okay.
And so talking about that, we were always talking about, start our own businesses and different things. So it was this training ground of like, God, are you really telling me to do this? Are you leading me to have any kind of entrepreneurial thing? And it all comes down to a fax. All right. So fax, FAX is what I'm talking about. So, if you're
kids, let me tell you what a fax is.
If you're under the age of 30.
It's a fax. So this is no lie. This is so funny. And we're going to get back to this story because this is great. So I have apartments in Cookeville, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And there is this Amish community who make the best decks that like stand on it.
Yeah, like deck on the back of your house.
They're unreal.
Yeah, right.
They're so good. They made one for me when I lived there.
Sweet.
And we have these apartments and they need to be replaced. Yeah. And I called the guy and I said, hey, can you get this for me? I said, can you just text me the quote? Just give me the numbers. Well, I don't text. Okay. He said, I'll fax it to you.
Fax it to you.
I said, no, this was last week. And I'm like, I don't have a fax. Well, I can fax it and it can go to your email. And I wanted to say, just email it. So I'm sorry.
It's so funny. Yeah. Well, and my kids, have this fax no printer, hashtag on the texting, when they're trying to talk about something that's, legit. Well, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, all right, that used to be a fax and you would send a document through a printer and then it would print out on the other end, wherever you are in the world, and you'd pick it up and you'd read it. So like a year and a half, I'd been every Tuesday morning dreaming with this friend, talking about the different entrepreneurial things he was interested in, I was interested in. And then I happened to get into the office when I was working in television sales very early one morning. This was before we had kids, so I usually got in earlier, than anybody else. And there happened to be this fax that had come across somehow overnight. And I just happened to go by and I grabbed it. Well, it was a broadcast fax from a marketing company, and they were just targeting, just sending it to anybody and everybody. Well, it was called the Make the Jump fax, and it was from a marketing company based in Dallas. Are you ready to make the jump to start your own business, this marketing consulting thing? And I grabbed it and I stuck it in my briefcase and just,
Never mind who it was to.
Yeah, because it was, it wasn't to anybody. It was just, no cover sheet, just kind of, and I got home that night and I looked at it and I'm like, what? And it was like, it was joining the conversation I was already having in my mind. For the last year and a half, I was already thinking, because I had a great job making really great money, for someone my age and doing all that. So fantastic benefits. Our company was owned by GE.
Yeah.
No reason in anybody's right mind
to jump.
What I make the jump.
No reason to jump, but also here, nothing tumultuous. There's nothing tumultuous going on, but also you didn't grow up thinking, I want to own my own business.
No. Yeah. It wasn't this.
This is where you and I are very similar. So like I had no desire to own my own business.
Yeah. What was modeled was, work hard, safe, backup plan, but it's like Warren's work hard. That was something that was said, So this really was this shift. So I get home and I share this with my wife and I just start thinking and praying about this. There was this company out of Dallas that was basically a home office for sole practitioners to start their own marketing agencies. And if you think about it in today's terms, this really was a fractional CFO, fractional CMO model.
That's it. Yeah.
So chief marketing officer. And that's pretty common today. There's a lot of solo practitioners who've maybe had careers in marketing, and you can go to a company and say, you can't afford a full CMO. I'll be your fractional CMO for a fee, and I'll give you executive level input and strategy, and we can outsource the execution.
Huh.
Well, this is what this was in 2003.
So they were way ahead of the curve.
Way ahead. And so like a franchise, there was a license fee.
I was going to say, it sounds like a franchise.
So yeah, I mean, so basically I called the number. I called the 800 number. I got this onboarding thing. And it's like, we are coming to your city, at the Winfrey Hotel up in this conference room one night. And it was basically everybody who was interested in doing this. And so I ended up plunking down $35,000 as a license fee. And I started this business. And I left my 6-figure job with a 6-week-old at home. My wife had just quit her teaching job. And so we go from 2 incomes to 0 so that I can start this marketing business with a baby at home.
You've got balls the size of coconuts. That's crazy.
Everybody said I was crazy, nuts. Why are you doing this?
So let me ask you a question. Why? Okay, I say why because this is what I did. Why did you not do both until you had what I like to call runway?
Sure. That probably would have been a smarter decision.
Yeah.
I have always believed and have lived, kind of learn the hard way, that a divided mind is not running all cylinders.
I agree with that.
So I knew before I left, I had approached 3 or 4 of my clients and I just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing something like this. Give me some feedback. And I wasn't asking for their business. I just said, I'm thinking about leaving my post here. And these are clients of mine, at the TV station.
Tell me what exactly you're doing day to day at the TV station.
Okay, so I was broadcast television sales.
So you were selling advertising to MillFit for the TV show,
right? So
Thomas, come advertise on MillFit.
This was the local NBC affiliate.
Okay.
Actually, it was an owned and operated station back then.
Okay,
owned by NBC television stations, and so yeah, I was selling to local businesses who were buying television advertising time. And so I sat down I had 3 or 4 really close clients and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, just giving some feedback. And somebody said, you're crazy. And another one said, that's great, but if you're asking for my business, I'm not going to give it to you. And I'm like, that's fine. Just kind of wanted to get some feedback. And I had one client who said, I think that's great. Do it. And call me when you've started.
And you did it anyway.
I think that was just enough for me. And
what'd your dad say? Let's go back to that. Because I know you're, from the little bit we know, it sounds like you come from a believing home.
Oh, absolutely.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's rooted in your soul.
Yes.
Tell me what your dad, did you ask your dad and mom?
Yes.
What'd they say?
Well, here's the thing. There's all these I made a bean counter joke earlier, but the great thing about my dad was that he, not only is he one of the brightest minds that I know, he is one of the most determined people I've ever met. And behind any successful professional services firm, there is an entrepreneurial mind.
Sure.
And so that is what he encouraged in me.
Wow.
And he said, hey, not only with that, but I'm gonna partner with you. Because you know what, at the time, I didn't have 35K.
I was gonna ask, where'd you get 35K at 26, 25, 26
and
years old?
He said, I will float that for you, and that'll just be a loan.
Did he make you pay it back?
I did pay that back. I didn't pay all of it back.
Yeah. But again, you had a well-off dad that fronted it, but then the lesson was probably, hey, give me some of this money back.
Right. Yeah. And it was like, look, you don't have the resources to do this now. This is going to be my investment in you and your development and everything. And so, he was enthusiastically involved and said, yeah. And the other great thing about it too, is that he knew I was going to have some dark days and I was going to make a lot of mistakes and get my teeth kicked in a lot as a business owner. And he was encouraging me because, he wanted me to have my own path and my own scars too. I mean, so he was enthusiastic about it. And then my wife was a little afraid because she came from, yeah.
Okay. So you've got a 6-figure job.
Yeah.
You're leaving to go start your own business.
Right.
What did your wife say?
She thought, okay. She was a bit concerned, but she said, but I trust you.
Was she working at the time?
Yes.
Doing what?
Teaching school.
Okay.
She had just come off maternity. I mean, so
just had a baby.
Yeah. So she'd saved up her days off, left school, left spring break. We have our first son. She had all the vacation days banked. And so she's done. She's done teaching and she's a stay-at-home mom with a 6-week-old baby.
So she's not going to go back in the
She's
fall.
not going to go back.
Oh, okay. So let's get really technical here. So you're in mid-20s.
Yep.
You've got a new child.
Yep.
You start. Did you have any debt besides a home? Did you have any consumer debt?
No.
No consumer debt. Wonderful.
We drove old cars that were paid off. Julie had a little bit of student loan, and I had some savings that we paid off. And, you know, she had a little bit of a car payment, paid that off when we got married. So we were debt-free, living in a 3-1, just had a mortgage.
Good for you. Okay, so tell me about transitioning from the 6-figure job to the new franchise or the new venture.
Yeah. So this was called Y2 Marketing, and there were, you know, thousands of people around the country kind of doing what I was doing. Well, you know, it's like anything else. If you knew everything that you were going to have to go through, would you do it? You know, and the answer is probably no. But it was really good and it was really hard. So I had to learn about honoring commitments when it's really, really hard. Mm-hmm. I had some partners in the business, you know, some quasi, you know, kind of referral relationships and some, I say partners, you know, we chose to work together. These were other people doing the same thing that I did and, you know, chose them. And, you know, there were some good things that we did, and we were able to close business and, you know, get busy pretty quickly, serving all of those. And then made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes with people, and there's some decisions that I'm not proud of,
right?
You know, with how I treated things and handled things. And I wasn't mature enough yet, you know, in the business acumen, or even just, you know, dealing with those things.
What were you doing? Like, what were you selling? Like,
so if I come to you, I would say, hey, Thomas, tell me about, you know, what you do to generate business in your, you know, with MealFit, whatever you're doing. And so it's generally kind of a consultation type, you know, conversation. And then to see, would you need someone to actually give marketing strategy, marketing research, someone to really handle marketing communications, and then handle the execution of getting the media placed, the brochure designed, the website produced, the TV commercial or the radio commercial, you know, done, the social media ad, you know, this was before social media, but all those things. And then there was a creative hub in Dallas. And so I was basically, you know, think of it as I'm the quarterback, and I have the relationship, and then I have this great team at the home office that can fulfill everything. And there's a monthly fee.
Who's your target client? Like, who are you going after every week?
So we knew that it was going to be local, you know, lower middle market companies. You know, we weren't working for, you know, huge employers.
Who's your first customer?
The Jimmy Hale Mission was a nonprofit.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It was really great because I'd really grown up serving there and volunteering there, and it's interesting, you know, that's a pretty significantly sized ministry, you know, for those of you who don't know about it. It's been around 80 years. And Tony Cooper was the executive director and had been a long, long time. And he had been a client and was very active. He was great at, they called him the mission media man. He really kept the mission's name and out there.
I heard him on Jocks on the radio station.
Right.
All the time.
Right. Up. So he said, you know, there was a lot that I could do to help him and the mission.
Wow. So the mission was your first customer. Did you ever figure out a niche of the people that you could serve well? Great example of that is Ashley Robinson. She was on our podcast before. Ashley does a marketing agency in Fort Lauderdale, has an office here in Birmingham, but she targets law firms, not like Balch and Bingham, or she targets like smaller law firm.
Yeah, and I think the more specificity that you can to really delight a niche, that's really the way to go. And then you can really scale within that vertical, and it's great. I really didn't do that. I was focused on the industries that I knew really from my television and radio marketing days. So I knew furniture, retail furniture, and outdoor furniture. I just got to know that really well. I knew nonprofits. I had a friend in the surgery center space. And so I really kind of had these very specific kind of pockets. And if they were similar deliverables, okay, these type of, you know, clients, you know, need these type of marketing communications, you know. And so that was really kind of the common thing. So, you know, in retrospect, we were spread a little thin.
But you had a niche, but the niche was, these are the handful of things that I know and do well.
Right. So, and I mean, and over the course of that, and then what eventually, you know, that morphed into my own business once Y2 Marketing kind of, you know, wound down.
So tell me about that. Tell me tell me where it progressed from the franchise fee and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So like a lot of other things that we see, the founders of Y2 Marketing had a split. And so, yeah, so it was like anything else, not wanting to be affiliated with Y2 Marketing anymore. I already had local relationships clients. So I basically rebranded and then just kept on doing what I was doing. But billing changed, and it was a conversation like, hey, I know my card has said Y2 Marketing. I'm changing up, my fulfillment partner. We're going to do that locally now. Here's my new card. Nothing's changing.
No one knew any different. Tell me about growth.
So that business, if I look back and I'm honest, that business was never really a true business with enterprise value. That was a job that I created for myself.
I think that's totally fine.
Oh yeah,
in your 20s.
Right. It was a good first step in that. So it was kind of the Jamie show.
Sure.
But so I had some really talented, hardworking folks that supported me in various roles with media planning, account executives, traffic and office coordination type folks, but I really was the new business guy, the face of the agency, and really kind of head of strategy and client relationships and all of that. So that ran 11 years. I started, like if you count when I started with Y2 Marketing, we doubled our billing 6 times, but it was never gonna get any bigger than where it was. And, this was, I had 7-figure billings, so, this was a little $1-2 million company, and it put food on my table, but it was never going to be any bigger than that unless I kind of ripped the whole thing down and started over. And
why do you say you had to start over? I don't understand.
If I was going to change it into an actual business with enterprise value.
An actual agency.
Right.
Okay. So you get,
I think it's important that people kind of realize that, because some people say like, oh, I'm the CEO of X agency, and it's them and 3 or 4 people.
Correct.
So, I really try to, I guess as I've aged, I think it's important when we're talking about businesses versus jobs, that we really call things what they are. And I think it's part of my story, to really kind of look back and see that with very clear eyes. I mean, that was a job.
It was a job.
And it was an important job, but that was never going to be the thing to retire on unless I ripped the thing down and completely rebuilt it, which wasn't in the cards.
Yeah. During that process, so I want to go back here because this is going to transition in a second. During these 20s, would you say you were making good money, comfortable money?
I was, especially for people that when I looked around, and you can't help but compare. You kind of benchmark yourselves against others. It was funny. I felt like I was ahead of a fair amount of people.
Sure.
I mean, the lawyers and young doctors and different things, and people that were in other sales jobs, were kind of there. But I knew that I was doing everything that I knew to do. Right. We didn't have any debt other than the house. Mm-hmm. We were living beneath our means.
Right.
We were saving regularly.
Yep.
So trying to check all those boxes to steward well what we'd been given. And we were able to do a lot. I mean, it was fun, but we didn't live in the biggest house.
Yeah.
And we weren't buying flashy cars, and we weren't going to Hawaii.
Tell me about your investing journey. Did you invest in your 20s when you were making above average money?
Absolutely.
What'd you do?
Well, and here's the thing, like when I was 22, 23, those first couple of jobs, that wasn't.
You didn't?
No, that wasn't strong income at that point. But even though it wasn't strong income, I started with a Roth IRA when I was 22 years old, and my wife did too. And we funded that thing. I mean, 10, 15% of what, our gross income was from the very beginning.
So what else beside the Roth? Did you do anything outside of the Roth?
So that was really, that was really it. We were trying to build build equity in the home and that type of thing. But it was very kind of boring, just live beneath your means, and then, excess savings. If I got a bonus or different things, we'd put some of that away.
Yeah.
And so that was just really important, because having the dad that I did and trying to listen to the advice, it's like, hey, if you'll just fund this regularly from like age 22 to age 32, and then if you just stop and just run the calculators, you're going to have more in age 60 than if you started when you were 45. And it's just the compounding of money.
Yeah. So tell me about this. Why did you not put it in something that you could have access to then, that you could have access to 5 years down the road, as opposed to something that you can't have access to till you're 59 and a half?
Right. So I guess I was really focused in on having time on our side.
Sure.
And I knew, I was trusting the compound, the compound effect of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel at the time that I had any other big dollars to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's not like I had $50K that I could just say, I'll just take this and
put into this,
put into that, or that kind of thing. Now along the way, I didn't get into some real estate flipping.
Oh, perfect. Tell me about that. And when was this? When did you get into real estate flipping?
So I actually officed with some people who were doing that. And again, here's the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I mean, it's happening again, right? So I have it's in the young days of the agency, and so several of us entrepreneurs were all sharing a small little office, keeping our expenses down. Yeah. And a couple of these guys were flipping houses. They were part of a franchise that did that. So I'm around them every day. We're talking about it and everything. So this was 2005.
Okay.
So think about where we were in the market back then. This was where, and making pretty good money, having a decent banking relationships. I could call my banker and say, hey, I found a house. I want to do 100% interest only financing. I need $100K construction loan, interest only. I want to close in 2 weeks. And he's like, okay. And I was able to do that some. And obviously the world changed in 2008. Yeah. So I was able to do a little bit of that and did really well, but then, actually had a flip that I ended up moving into.
Because you had to?
Because I had to.
Wow.
It was great. And I put it on the market. Literally, I put it on the market, Thomas, the week before Bear Stearns collapsed. So just think about where we were in that time, okay?
Higher than a Georgia pine, and then all of a sudden,
bottom falls out. So I look at my wife and I said, we got 2 mortgages now. And so it's all great, when all the whole flipping thing happened. So in faith, I said, I think we need to put our house on the market, as well as the one where we were living in Inverness, as well as this flip that we've got. And let's just see which one sells first. Well, fortunately,
that's smart.
Fortunately, the house where we were living sold within 3 weeks for pretty close to asking. Pretty close.
And you had equity.
We had equity. And so we were able just to take that and then move into the flip. And we spent there, 4 or 5 years, and then eventually sold it.
What did you do with the profit you made from these flips?
So the first time it was just XX savings, and then we bought a car with it because we wanted to pay cash for the car.
Yeah.
And then really it was really plowing just into the general cash fund, which ended up funding the business.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you did the flip. Where are we at in the business at this point? So you've done this for 11 years. Where does it transition after that? So at the time, now you're 35, 30-ish,
right.
35-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So where we were with the business was, I knew, like I said, this was a job, and we had now weathered 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Really some lean years. Years where, months and months where I'm like, hey, I can't pay myself this month. I'll pay everybody else, And then in 2010, by this point in the business, I'd actually brought somebody on who was more senior than me, kind of a creative acquaintance who'd come into the business.
Equity?
No.
Okay.
But definitely somebody who was going to bring some gray hair, some expertise, and some skills that I didn't have. And I finally relinquished control of the creative direction of the agency and gave it to him. This was a great move. It was a wonderful partnership. Well, I say partnership. It was a wonderful relationship. And so through that relationship, we actually had, he could own the creative. I could do everything else that I was really good at. Yeah. And that's really where the agency started to do well. Coming out of that really difficult time in the economy where clients had said, we can't work with you anymore, and that kind of thing.
What was the name of this agency?
Forte Marketing Group.
Okay, so Forte Marketing Group. Where does it so you hire somebody to help with the creative. Where does it transition to from there? Well,
this guy has a relationship from 20 years prior at the U.S. Army, and the U.S. Army needed to do some work in 2010. And we, in the course of 3 or 4 months, basically closed this contract while the government spigot was turned on wide open, and produced 50 television spots for the U.S. Army that had us doing production locally, out of state. We went all the way to New Zealand on this job. So
holy crap.
Like inflection point kind of hockey stick growth.
So this one contract,
one account with the U.S. Army, yeah,
it just catapulted you guys.
It really did, and so that was the fuel for for all sorts of things that happen. But like anything else, how you really build equity and momentum, in the business is recurring revenue. And so this was all project, so it was fantastic and great. But then, it didn't come back the next year, and so we're then faced with some other challenges with the business, and this little thing called Iron Tribe Fitness had started, and have some employees leave and some different things. And so I start to get this sense of, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to ride this roller coaster? Because when it's up, it's great, but when it's down, it's not.
Anytime you have a big inflection point, in your business. The question is this: what do I do with all this money?
Right.
So what did you do with all this money?
It was interesting. I remember praying, a lot, literally that, Lord, we've been blessed, beyond measure. How do you want me to invest this? How do I steward this? We looked at expanding office space. It chose not to do that. I'll tell you the most satisfying thing that happened was I showed up for Christmas at my parents' house. They were hosting that year, and I handed my father a $50,000 check. And that was probably the most satisfying thing in the business because, the seeds he had planted years before, I was able to, make some great dividends to that investment. So, I leased a car. That was kind of the only indulgence that came from it. But we kind of stuck our heads down and said, I'm not going to build bigger barns.
No.
And do that. And it was good because the business was really starting to change, with kind of the nature of some of our clients and different things. I actually made a very hard decision to let a big client go just because I didn't feel like it was a good cultural fit.
Yeah, sure.
And I love that client, great business.
Right.
So, through the variety of those things, and so then I found the business getting smaller and smaller and thinking, okay, do I really want to be on this, train again? And so I really started praying like, hey, Lord, are you opening a door and closing another?
What's next? Yeah.
It's what's next? Like, do I really want to do this? Is this really going to get me where I was going to go? And then that's where it became clear to me. It's like, you have a job, you don't have a business. And so I really wanted a business. Yeah. And, a lot of the pain of...
Explain that.
Yeah.
Explain that. So you commented on it earlier.
Yeah.
It's best to call things the way they are.
Mm-hmm. Tell the truth.
You said, I have a job, but I wanted a business. Tell me what, in your opinion, the difference is.
So a job is something, that you show up to and you put in time and you're paid for that time or compensated for your time, but you really have to be there working in it every single day for that business to work, for that business to make money, that business to be profitable.
Okay.
A business is really a system, where you can work on that business and it's not fully it's not fully dependent on you showing up and doing your manual labor, or even your active, participation in the business to sell it, fulfill it, ascend the customers, all that type thing.
Right.
It really can run whether you show up to the office or not. Now, a lot of people think like, well, that's absentee ownership. I'm at the lake and I kick back and all that. No. I mean, working on the business is required of any business owner, but it's the difference. I mean, if you've read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth.
E-Myth.
So yeah, that's where I got this,
Gotcha. So you're in the marketing business. You have a huge year with the big contract from the Army.
Yeah.
You save some of it. You give some to your dad, or I say repay your dad.
Yeah, repay. Yeah.
But you sounds like you still got some in the bank.
Yeah.
What next?
So, it really was this situation where the market was changing. There was the social media was really starting to kind of come to the fore.
What year is this?
This is 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. 11, 12. And so I'm asking myself, do I really want to get back on this train? And I said, no, I want a business. I want something with recurring revenue. I want something where I can really play to my strengths and stay in my lane and not have to do it all. I mean, it was a really, really dark time, Thomas. I mean, because, you think about, well, I've got a decade invested in this, you start to think like, has this even been a success at all? A lot of really dark stuff was happening, especially when, if again, back to the Enneagram 3, where we carry a lot of our self-esteem as Enneagram 3s outside of us based on our performance. And so, yeah, you kind of come off of, oh, I was doing great. And now things are not so great. So, I mean, it was very, very dark. And so I started really praying like, Lord, do you have something else for me? Because this isn't what I wanted.
Unpack that. Like, why was it dark? You just came off a great year. Was it dark because you didn't know what was next and you needed something to fulfill you? Explain this a little bit deeper.
Yeah. So,
because I think this is important.
Yeah.
Because there's probably somebody that's that's been through this. They can't explain it.
Right. Well, so I've always been, this is right out of the Bible, but it's in my conscious, it's like, to whom much is given, much is expected. Right?
Sure.
I'd always felt, as an Enneagram 3, right? As this performer, a lot of how I felt about me was how I did in life. Well, that's not biblical, but it's what I deal with, right? It's kind of my wound. It's my area to heal. So there was a lot of that going. And then I knew, just every every pitch we were doing, the business just started not working. People that had been along for the ride, had left the company. And so I found myself with less help than I ever had, more pressure, and really just getting this sense that what I'm doing now is not working. And I felt so helpless by it. And I just felt that I just did not want to sign up for the rest of while I was there. But you start to feel hopeless.
Wow.
And here's the thing too, as men, especially with everything that we, in life, when men hit a trigger and they fall into the pit, they're generally going to respond in one of four ways: guilt, shame, anger, or blame.
Okay.
And as men, our culture has kind of trained us to isolate and insulate because we don't want to show weakness.
Sure.
We don't want to admit that we need help. We don't want to admit that we don't know what to do. And so cutting myself off and being so afraid to fail, it really was a very deep emotional spiral because I felt like I can't fail. I'm going to let people down. I've got this super successful dad. I've got this wife and now 3 kids. Okay, I've got to do something here. And failure isn't an option. So that pressure, and I really started to think like there was no way out. And the thoughts that I was starting to have in my head were scary.
Really? So hard, angry, frustrating, hopeless thoughts. What changed?
So I guess the darkest part, was I felt like I just couldn't handle a failure. Like that in my mind, that was the worst thing that could happen if I lost my business. Well, and ultimately I didn't have to lose it, but I had to put that down and lay that down kind of before God on the altar. Right. This isn't mine. Yeah. I've called it mine, but this is really something that you've given me. And so once I let go of it, this is just this huge, spiritual journey for me. I had to let go of it and actually put it on the altar to let God do what it wants. And I said, hey, if you want me to do something different than this, because I don't want this. Mm-hmm. And I wanted this to be really different. I wanted this to be a business, not a job. What would you have me do? And so I just started praying through that. And that was where the ray of hope, that I could actually trust God to do what his word says, because look at what he had done with every moment in my life up until that point. So just now that I've gotten, this business and all of the struggles of parenthood and everything just, kind of coming down on me in my early 30s. Yeah. I'm sorry, late 30s at this point. And so it's interesting. I joined this gym in 2010 when it opened up called Iron Tribe Fitness. Yeah. And this was this new kind of vehicle, this outlet for me to get stress out and taking better care of myself and community and all those things. So it was, isolating a little bit less, some of those kind of things. And I said, what would you have me do? And so through a series of events, there were some closed doors, some open doors and some different things. But eventually what happened with that business was I was able to sell the assets to this creative partner who'd come in. And
the guy that you had hired.
Yeah. Still have it. He still has the brand today. He kept all the clients. He's done an amazing job with it. In fact, the Army business came back 8 or 9 years later, kind of got around to. Wow. And so that worked really, that worked out really well. But
so he bought it from you and you're jobless in businesses, don't have a business.
Well, so what had kind of happened was I'd been praying, what do I do? And I found myself, there's a little bit of backstory about how I got there, but I joined Iron Tribe and I'd been in a business owners group with Forrest Walden, who's the founder. And
let me give some people some context. Iron Tribe is a wonderful, I will call it a CrossFit gym. I will call it
No, it's not CrossFit. Oh, it's not CrossFit. Yeah, it's not.
Him and Glassman got in an argument, and at one point, it's a CrossFit gym. It's a group fitness gym. How would you describe it?
Let me give you the company line, Thomas.
Let me hear your company line.
Okay.
Because we will argue this to the
Iron Tribe Fitness is often confused for CrossFit.
Okay.
And if you took all the branding and all the logos and the signs off of the building and you looked in through the window during one of our power classes, you might think it's a CrossFit gym because of the movements that are used.
Correct.
But beyond that, Thomas, the brands diverge. Now, to Iron Tribe, here's the facts, okay? Yeah. Iron Tribe started in 2010 as a CrossFit affiliate.
It did.
And then quickly de-affiliated 18 months later because Forrest, the founder, knew that he had a very different training philosophy than Glassman did. Yep. Wanted to build a different brand than what Glassman had built.
Now, let me say this. The brand is totally different.
Right.
I know Forrest Walden. He is a man of integrity. He loves Jesus.
Yes.
He's a family man. He is as good a dude as you'll ever meet.
100%.
I know Coach Glassman as well. They're different. They're totally different. in the way they do life.
And I've never met Coach Glassman.
Yes.
All I know,
trust me.
Yeah. So, but I knew what Forrest, I was clear on what Forrest wanted to do.
Yeah.
Different brand, different training philosophy, wanted to serve a different customer.
Yep.
And so that's why Iron Tribe de-affiliated. And then really since that time, have distanced themselves from each other.
Absolutely.
So, that's it's kind of the funny explanation, but other than the movements, which are Olympic lifting and the kind of cardio that Iron Tribe does, I mean, that's where the similarity ends.
Correct.
Here's the other thing too, that really makes it different today is there are group classes that, like I've described, but 4 years ago, the brand really innovated coming out of the pandemic by introducing a semi-private personal training.
Yep.
And so now, an Iron Tribe customer really has 2 levels of service they want to choose from. And so they can have custom nutrition, workouts, thing that's just dedicated to your body and what you want to do.
Yep.
Or you can do group classes. So there's a choice.
Either one.
Yep.
So you're going to the Iron Tribe.
I'm going to the Iron Tribe, and Forrest and I are in this business group called Vistage.
Yep.
And so Forrest brings the franchise opportunity because he wants to franchise this new gym that he started. And
now, is Jim still involved at this point?
Jim Cavell.
Yes.
Yes. So Jim came aboard very early on.
Is Lewin still involved?
Lewin is at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the director of training. And man, Lewin and Jim, incredibly talented people. And they've gone on to do amazing things.
Unbelievable human beings.
Yeah, they really are. And so they're all involved at this point. So Jim and Forrest bring the Iron Tribe franchise pitch to our Vistage group. This is like 2011.
Okay.
And
you're sitting in the room. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're sitting in the room
as the owner of Forte Marketing Group.
The Forte Marketing.
Right.
And you are buddies with Forrest. You go to Forrest Gym.
Yeah.
And he comes up, and the Vistage is a business group, higher level, a lot higher level than BNI. It's like where business owners come, share ideas, all those things.
Right.
Get advice, whatever. So you're sitting in this Vistage group, and he goes and he pitches. Hey, I want to start a franchise.
Here's the numbers. Here's the marketing, blah, 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 blah. So I'm asking all these questions because I was already a happy client. I mean, good grief. I had gone from, like this skinny guy, and I'm actually putting on muscles. I have abs for the first time in my late 30s. And I'm loving Iron Tribe. I'm like, wow, so this is a business? So I start asking all these questions. So Forrest is like, why is Jamie asking all these questions? Well,
marketing group.
What he didn't know is that I'd had a business plan come across my desk 6 months earlier, and me and 3 other guys had invested in 2 guys that wanted to do a CrossFit gym in Nashville.
Which one?
Well, these 2 guys said, we want to start a standalone CrossFit in Nashville. We believe in it. We want it to have a Christian focus. And I said, well, hey, if this is going to be anything like Iron Tribe in Nashville, sure. So we all invested in that. And then they were just trying to find a location, 2 young guys, and we were backing them. So I'm asking all these questions, and then I said, well, send me the information on the franchise. He's like, what, you? And I said, well, yeah, I don't know. You don't know this, Forrest, but I've invested in this with these 2 guys up there. Well,
and I've been praying my face off because I'm trying to figure out
what am I doing next, God? What am I doing next? Yeah. So there were 3 or 4 other people that had some single-digit equity positions in this, what was going to be a CrossFit thing in Nashville. So I convinced everybody. The other money partners, all these people, I said, we don't need to be standalone CrossFit guys in Nashville. We should be Iron Tribe Fitness franchisees there because I've lived this for, a couple of years now. This brand is awesome. We need to do this. And a couple of those guys said, no, thanks, I'm out, and moved on, but the original guy that wrote the business plan and the lead coach in that little partnership, they said, yeah, let's do it. And so then we said, let's just don't do 1, let's do 4. So we raised some more money, and in July of 2012, we were the 2nd franchisee to ever commit and signed up for 4 locations in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, I want to unpack you said a lot right there.
Yeah.
So they had you and another guy. What was the other guy's name? Can you tell me?
Eli Martirana.
Okay, you and Eli.
Yeah.
You were the guys that put in the quote money
Yep.
to do this. Then you had a coach. What was the coach's name?
Maxwell Jones.
Maxwell Jones. So you, Eli, and Max. You guys are going to go to Nashville. You made a comment. You said, we decided to raise some more money. Tell me what that looked like.
Yeah. So Eli had done a great job of the pro forma about a 1 location business. And so, okay, we're going to get 1 location, and that's what that pro forma was. Well, when we decided that the Iron Tribe concept had enough legs, then we were going to go ahead and commit to a multi-unit agreement because
you committed to 4 before you started 1.
Exactly. Because again, I was the one that had been living the Iron Tribe life for already 18 months at this point. I'd also heard the pitch. I also have known Forrest now for almost 10 years. Yeah, probably more than 10 years at this point. So I got real fired up about this real quick. And so it was kind of one of the first persuasive things I needed to do was say like, hey, here's the value, everybody, of doing this. So 3 other financial partners along with me, and then everybody else, that Iron Tribe was going to be a better journey than standalone CrossFit.
Yep. So you went and quote raised money.
That was looking at the other. So I was a financial partner.
Yep.
And then, we had each written $25,000 checks. So we raised $100K to kind of get them started, but it was going to take way more than that to get.
So where'd you get the other money?
So me and my other 3 financial partners, we all ponied up.
You just all of you gave more money.
Yep.
Okay. So you committed these 4 franchises. Yep. What next?
So there'd been the first franchise. I mentioned that we were the second franchisee. The first franchisee had committed to a different 4 locations in Nashville about a month before we did. So they actually opened up before, they opened up unit number 1.
Where?
Brentwood.
Yep.
So they opened up that one. Our first one opened in February of 13.
Where?
Belmead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then their second one opened, Cool Springs.
Okay.
South of 13. We opened up number 4 in January of 14, which is Belmont.
Okay.
Green Hills area. And then
northwest side of Nashville.
Yeah, 1 mile south of Belmont University on Belmont Boulevard.
Okay.
So there's now 4 open in the market between 2 different franchisees. Well, the other franchisee who was the first franchisee group to commit, they contact me in the early summer of 14. They wanted out. And so, absentee owners, there was somebody locally that was, working on that, but things were not going well like they wanted them to. We were kind of the natural buyer, and we did a deal.
What did it look like to buy these other franchise owners out?
So at the time, we knew that we wanted them. So, we liked the idea of kind of buying, even if it was distressed and had a little hair on it, we'd want to buy it.
You bought in 2 of the best areas of Nashville.
Right.
Because honestly, had you were picking, you probably would have picked those areas over the areas that you picked. Maybe?
Well, here's the thing.
Brentwood and Belmead. I mean, that's
well, we wanted all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like they were all. I mean, so we felt like they had some legs. Right.
I agree.
And really, it was, in retrospect, it was a little bit of a defensive position because we really didn't want another franchisee coming in. So we were quick to.
But a good defense.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, all cards on the table. Like full. Let's call things what they are.
Yeah.
We overpaid for it.
Yeah.
We just did. But we did a deal.
Okay.
And basically, it was. A lot of this was a price, that probably could have been commanded in the market plus a little bit of a premium.
A little bit of a premium.
Yeah.
So you bought these guys out. You've now got 4 gyms. Do you have access to the other gyms that you wanted, or is this now your 4 gym section that you committed to?
We got their development plan as long as as in addition to our development plan. So now
you've got legs. You've got the ability to have how many franchises?
8. So we go from 2 gyms to 4 overnight with that acquisition, and then we have their development rights as well as ours, left on the table.
You've pretty much got the market in Nashville if you want.
Right.
What is the biggest positive in owning a franchise?
So you want to own a franchise if you really want someone to have done the hard, heavy lifting of figuring out the systems and how to acquire customers, how to keep them, how to fulfill, how to do all of that, and basically have all of that documented, all of that worked out, have paid the stupid tax, like we say, and figured all that out to where it's a repeatable, predictable process. And so that's why you do a franchise in any industry. They've already kind of gotten the positioning, the branding, the name, and all you have to do is just plug and play their systems to go do business as that brand in a local market.
What are the biggest negatives to owning a franchise?
So I would say it's negative in a franchise if you really want to be the true entrepreneur that goes and figures all of that stuff out. And some people are really gifted at that. Some people in a franchise system might find themselves frustrated to say like, well, why are we doing it this way? Why do we have to sell and say this? And when I get a customer, why can't I do A, B, and C instead of 1, 2, and 3? Because the manual says to do it this way, but I think it ought to be done this way. Well, if you really want to figure all of that out and go do that, and you feel like you've got that visionary, that visionary quality, it's funny. Ricky Brooks, former CEO of Express Oil Change, said this at a conference. He said he wasn't ever a pure entrepreneur. He was an operational entrepreneur. He would say that You give him a system, a manual, he's going to out execute anybody else. And I kind of felt like that's really kind of what my wiring was. I wasn't the guy to go figure out, okay, here's the hole in the market. I'm going to do this and position all that. If you want to go solve those kind of problems, go be an entrepreneur.
Own your own business.
Own your own business. Start your own brand and then have somebody help you franchise it. But if you want a system that somebody can hand you to where you really kind of have some lanes to run in and you just want to execute, then a franchise is perfect.
What are the margins on a group fitness gym?
Group fitness gym is going to be, if you're exclusively group fitness, that's generally going to be a lower margin. You can look up some averages and ranges. I think in the fitness industry, the average margin for a fitness franchise, kind of all fitness, might be in the 10% range. But if you have higher levels of service, and depending on what your real estate and labor situation, is with those costs, that can be much higher, 15, 20, even 30%.
At the end of a quarter and your profit margin is this percent, what are you happy with? What are you, not just elated, you are happy with what percent of margin?
It's like anything else. It really depends on kind of what your goals are, okay? If you're really trying to build an enterprise and you are reinvesting, it's a retained earnings play. You want to have those be as high as possible so that that's the fuel to further expansion and more stores and better talent and better tech stacking and all those kind of things. That's a longer play. If you're kind of creating this thing that's really just a dividend for you and you personally, and there's no other partners in the business, you might be happier with a smaller margin because you could pay yourself a big salary and then you could kind of zero it out at the end of the year and it's not a big deal.
Right.
We're trying to build something, with where we can have lots of stores. And so it is very much the long game that we are in.
So that was my next question.
Yeah.
Give me the 40-second answer to what is the business goal with Iron Tribe Fitness in Nashville?
I feel that where we're positioned and the strength of where we are, that I can give people a career in fitness and make six figures and have their spouse stay at home and put braces on their kids and have them take nice vacations and put away savings and retire and invest because of the strength of our model. And so I look at it as a stewardship play.
How so?
Well, we could certainly build the thing up and sell it, but I know what the average multiples are in the fitness industry. Okay. I know what those are,
Yep.
But it's a lot more exciting, thing to me to build something that's going to last in my kids' generations and even the next, even if it looks different. There's a lot of different ways that I can get my chips off the table.
Sure.
Bringing along a next generation behind me to do it. So we could sell it, but I would much rather and want to work hard to try to achieve a vision to where, the people that are starting as coaches today are the leaders tomorrow.
So you've got kids that are 21, 18, and 14.
Yeah.
What does success look like in Iron Tribe Fitness for you in 10 years?
So I don't believe I'll ever retire. I have a good friend named Tim Bembry who calls it rewired. So I want to reach rewirement age in the next 8 or 9 years. And rewirement age is being able to work where I want, when I want, on what I want, with whom I want, wherever I want. And so I don't believe it's biblical to retire. As long as my health and mind are clear, I always want to be doing something. But I think that by that time and where I'll be with, age and stage in life, someone else will need to be leading the organization beyond me.
What do you do day to day now?
So my principal responsibilities in the company are, as the CEO of our company, is I'm in charge of resource management and overall strategy. I'm also the CMO of our company. So I'm the chief marketing officer.
That fits.
Yeah. So, but really I lead leaders. Okay. I establish the systems and define goals and how we're going to be there. I'm chiefly responsible for our landlord relationships and new store development.
You made the comment as we were getting ready to this, your tent making skill is marketing.
Yeah.
I think this is a great question. How do you market creatively owning a franchise?
Okay. That is a great question. Yeah. So it all comes down to who are we trying to reach, right? And so, I mentioned this earlier, we want to delight the niche. Well, we want to help as many people with Iron Tribe Fitness as we can. And Iron Tribe is good for everybody, but it's not for everybody. And this is what I mean by that. What we're trying to do with group fitness and semi-personal training will be attractive to a certain segment of the market. And other segments of the market won't want to do it. So it's really getting clear about who are we going to serve? Who's our ideal customer? Who's the avatar?
Yeah.
And we know who that is. I mean, we really do. And it's more than just like age, gender, location, that kind of thing. It's like, what are the psychographic qualities of people? I mean, how do you really figure and target people that want to be the best versions of themselves, and they really want to invest in their health, and they value community, and they'll put a relationship with their coach beyond their personal convenience in their schedule. I mean, like all of those things, And so if you look at the body of work, of how we've generated customers, it's all about the message for the right market and then in the right medium. And that wasn't me, that's Dan Kennedy. I mean, so it's the triangle, right? But you have to get all of that right. But so within a franchise, I mean, there's certainly going to be things that are on brand and off brand, I mean, like if we wouldn't come out with this completely inappropriate thing for who we're trying to target. But there's a lot of creativity when it comes to how do we speak to that person? How do we speak to that guy who's 45 and who might have a dad bod and is unhappy with it, doesn't know what to do, successful in other areas of his life? I mean, how do we help him? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can approach that guy, But I mean, it might be big, flashy 6-week challenge kind of thing, but more appropriately, we're probably speaking to his pain a little bit and we're being honest.
So let's go tactically. Because you're a tactical guy.
Yeah.
The blocking and tackling. Tactically, what works for you in marketing Iron Tribe Fitness?
So anybody in the space, in the boutique gym space where we are, I mean, they're going to say like, it is paid social.
Okay.
It is paid marketing on Facebook, Instagram. We do not. We've done a little bit of testing with TikTok, but it's really not our customer.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So it's paid social. It is a very strong referral system within our business. I mean, it is, you ask for referrals every single time. And if someone is happy and we've helped change their life and they've got confidence again, and it is spilling over, what they're doing in the gym is spilling over into every other area of their life, why wouldn't they want to have their spouse or their friends or their kids come join them with that? I mean, it really is the third place. There's home, there's work, there's the gym.
No.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, the friend relationships you make, because here's the thing, gym is routine.
Right.
There's 5 a.m. people. Mm-hmm. Same suckers show up at 5 a.m. every day.
Yeah.
There's 5 p.m. people. The same people show up at 5 p.m. every day.
Right.
And there's lunch people. And they show up the same time every day. And if you spend an hour a day with that human, you're going to have some sort of connection with them. Because a lot of times, we don't spend 5 hours a day, an hour a day with our wife.
Right.
It happens.
Well, and you on top of that, Thomas, you say, okay, now we're going to spend that time, that hour a day, doing things that we didn't think were possible.
Sure.
There's a bond that happens. Okay. So it's like, are we delivering an amazing experience? And then people want to tell them about it. So generally, we're a digital marketing brand,
No
so
question.
Google search, paid social, tech stacks, that have websites and landing pages and different things that can kind of help steward, someone down the fitness journey from, I don't even know that I have a problem, to I have a problem and I'm aware. Okay. Now I'm looking for solutions. Iron Tribe's a solution.
If you were to spend $10,000 a month on social ads, what would need to be your return to be a success?
Okay, so I'm generally going to look for a 3 times ROAS.
Okay.
But I've achieved
Explain
a 5 and a 6 as well.
Oh, wow. Explain ROAS.
ROAS, ROAS, return on ad spend.
Okay.
So, anybody...
Use the $10,000 number.
Yeah, so if I'm going to spend $10,000 on paid ads, I generally want to see within the first 30 days. So within the month that I've deployed that, I want to have upfront cash from the initial experience from that to at least cover that. So I want that to be a 1-to-1.
Right.
But then over the contract value that I generate from those that $10,000 of ad spend, I want to see at least $30,000 in contract value. Mm-hmm. In the past, we've achieved $50,000 and $60,000 returns on that $10,000 investment within the Iron Tribe
You like
brand.
a 3, but a 5 or 6 makes you smile.
It does make me smile, but here's the thing: that's usually not sustainable.
5 or 6 is, no, you're right. 5 or 6 is not sustainable. 5 or 6 will happen in January. 5 or 6 will happen.
Q2 is actually our best quarter of the year.
February, people don't realize this. February is the best month for a gym usually.
Yes.
And then was it August or September?
Well, so we might be a little artificial in that. I mean, our November is very, very strong because we have some Black Friday plays that are very attractive. Very attractive.
I didn't think about that.
That's generally to our house list. Those are unconverted leads, people that might have opted in to learning more about us but have never bought Iron Tribe before.
Yeah.
So
That's good. What's the most challenging part of running a group fitness gym?
it's not a set it and forget it kind of business.
Oh,
This isn't a mini storage business. This isn't a convenience store gas station business. And what I mean by that is those are models that have some recurring revenue, but there's not a high skill talent set that's required to execute that for customers on a daily basis. It's needed, but it's not a high skill, talent requirement. With our business, we're talking about people's health and fitness. We're talking about relationship. And so you really have to have your eye on the ball to have the right people. Man, we are in the people business. I mean, that's a cliche, but like fitness is simply just our platform, but we are serving people.
so your most challenging part would be hiring.
It's hiring and, making sure that we have that. And then also too, when it comes to I mentioned marketing earlier, fitness is a fashion industry. There's all sorts of things that
Explain that.
are coming. Well, I mean, just there's a lot of fads and trends and things change quickly in fitness. I'll just give you a quick example. 4 years ago at this time, okay, we're in the month of May. 4 years ago at this time, we were in the, heat of the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And guess what? The at-home fitness concepts thought that they'd won the lottery. And a lot of them did. In fact, everyone thought, not knowing kind of where we would be and where we would be 4 years later, group fitness, in-person, fitness concepts will never be the same. It's all about at home now. And so you had really big brands with at home and, home delivery type, delivery models and that kind of thing there was a brand that sold for $500 million in 2020 that is now out of business because it had an at home product that another big brand thought we're going to capitalize on that. And it's been $500 million of write-offs in the last 4 years.
Who was it?
Mirror.
It is. I remember that.
But there's more stories of that. There's
Countless stories of that.
Peloton, it's struggled. There's been some other things, Tonal. And so you can just kind of read about, those. So all that to say, I'm not throwing stones, just all that to say
No.
what everybody thought was going to be the new normal 4 years ago is it's just vastly different. So in the fitness industry, there's, wearables or, there's a trend. There's, different ways that fitness is delivered, different styles of training. It's been cyclical. It's been, and it swings very wildly. So my point is marketing. How do we continue to connect with customers in a fresh way where we have social platforms where we really are, and just think about this times, we don't own our presence on the social platforms.
No.
That's rented land. And so, the challenge is we have one of our main mechanisms of acquiring new customers, attracting and interacting with customers is on rented land on someone else's platform. So the whole challenge with marketing, even in a franchise, is to use the rented land of social to get enough of a relationship for them to say, okay, I'll give you my contact information so we can have a one-to-one relationship. Because I might meet you on social, you might see an Instagram video, but then really I want to know your name and your email address so that you've given me permission to talk to you directly.
Right.
And so the brands that can do that are the ones that really have a chance to make it long term.
Do you have to come up with your own creatives, meaning your own videos that you run ads to, or is that something that's done corporately? So let me give everybody some context. So Forrest's Iron Tribe HQ is in downtown Birmingham. He is the ultimate owner of all of it. So my question is this: as he owns the franchise, is he in charge of all the marketing materials, meaning the videos? And how does that work? I don't understand that.
Yeah. So as a franchisor, part of the role of that is to give marketing support.
Okay.
And so, that's the role of the franchisor is to say, here's some videos that I've done that you can use. Here's some scripts that you can go shoot your own version of this video that I've provided. But yes, and Forrest has invested heavily in the support of his franchisees.
Yeah.
With tech stacks, with systems, we're all on the same marketing CRM.
What do y'all use?
That's Go High Level.
Go High Level. Gotcha.
Yeah. And that's different than our gym management software, which is Club Ready.
Yep.
And that is what actually interfaces with the app, and you do billing and scheduling there.
Totally different things.
Totally, yeah, two different systems.
Yeah.
So, the great thing about that is if there's a play or, and when I say a play, a workflow, a set of marketing that leads people to a landing page, a funnel. Yeah, it's a funnel. You can share those with a click, with everybody in the brand, and that type of thing. So Go High Level is a great SaaS-based, cloud solution for growing brands.
As a franchise owner, how do you pay yourself?
That's a good question. So for the first several years in the business, it was simply a guaranteed payment because I'm an owner of our company and we have a Tennessee LLC that owns and operates all of the Nashville area Iron Tribes. And so I just had a guaranteed payment because I've got a couple of business partners in that business, but they don't have jobs in the business. So we're members, but then I'm actually paid a salary to do my job as CEO. But that was a guaranteed payment. And so, but then a few years ago, we actually elected to go to S Corp for tax purposes. And we can do that for tax purposes, even though we're an LLC. Yeah. And so when we did that, I actually became an employee of the company, and I get a W-2 now. But that was
you do?
I do. Yeah, because as an S Corp, that's how that works. So again, it's the money didn't change. It was just but we actually have a lot of tax savings by doing that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that. Do you get any profit share if you do well? So you've got your salary. So S Corps are salaries for people that don't know. The reason you do an S Corp is any profit that's in the bank is taxable to the owners.
Right.
As what I call big tax. But if you're an S Corp, you get paid a franchise, you get paid a salary. And when you get paid that salary, you are big taxed on your salary, but you're not big taxed on any of the profit.
Right.
There is a tax on the profit.
Right.
But it's not there's a big difference in big tax and little tax. I got crushed one year before I was S Corp'd.
Gotcha.
Because of that.
Right.
So S Corp, if you're in a situation like this, S Corp is a very, very wise way to go.
So you asked about, incentive compensation.
Incentive compensation.
So as CEO, I have a net revenue, basically incentive plan that's done quarterly based on the net revenue of the company. So I'm incentivized to maximize net revenue of the company, and then quarterly I'm paid, X percentage based on that. For me in the role of CEO. Which
helps you grow, which helps you hustle,
right.
Which helps you just continue to grow the brand.
We've allocated a certain certain percentage of our profits for our company profit sharing plan. That's for our people. And then, so they have a portion and then I have a portion.
I love that.
And then over and above that, obviously we choose to make partnership distributions to cover taxes or any excess distributions if we want to take the money out. But we're really, and have been in growth mode. And so right now we're trying to maximize retained earnings because that's paying for the next gym that will open next
How many
year.
Gyms do you have right now?
We have 5.
5. You have 5 in Nashville. How old is the newest gym?
7 years.
So why have you not done a gym in the last 6 or 7 years?
Well, we were all ready to go with this really throttle up plan in the fall of 2019. And then, what happened a few months later with the pandemic.
Have you not been able to look at that in the last 3 years? It's just not been in the cards?
So we have. So we actually are working on the next gym now. It's under construction. But it took us a year to find that location.
Where are you putting the new one?
The new one is in Gallatin, Tennessee, which is a northeast suburb of Nashville up by the lake.
That's wonderful.
So we'll serve Hendersonville and Gallatin there.
If you lost it all today and you just had your wife and kids, what would you go do?
I'd pray. I'd take a breath. I wouldn't be in a hurry I would want to sit. I would want to hear God clearly. All that saving and putting things away, I wouldn't need to go get a job next week. I could feed us, for a while. So I guess if that happened, as hard as that would be, I guess I would want to be present and prayerful and to listen. But to answer your question, you kind of think, okay, well, what are my skills, passions, and marketplace demand, right? Where's that Venn diagram that I can do it again? And, I think that something in the fractional CMO space, actually kind of knowing what I know now, I think would be an easy kind of answer, But I think that I've got a unique heart for people, especially guys that are 10, 15, 20 years behind me, to see them and to help them along their journey. If I can help support somebody in their early 30s feeling like I did when I was feeling so hopeless and so empty. And even knowing the truth, right, of what the Bible tells us, right, to be a reminder to that, and to help break the satanic attack of what's going on in people's minds. So I think something around men's ministry, would be, I think my wife and I could easily see us starting some kind of presence online to help couples to do that. And kind of the third layer with that is, I've got a child with special needs. And so, he's 18, Down syndrome, and he's on the autism spectrum. Helping families in that journey, and having more bandwidth to do that. It's funny. I think that there is an opportunity for people who've traditionally been in a nonprofit space, who end up coaching and helping people. I think there's an opportunity today for those who want to be for-profit coaches who can really minister to people and help people, And so, that might be an area, or something related to marketing.
What's the hardest part about being very high executor and having a special needs kid?
Wow. How long is this podcast?
Yeah.
I think that the moment that we had Jonathan, we did not know about the diagnosis until he was born. So there was shock. We were given the chance. We were given the chance to know, but kind of discouraged, like, it's fine. And, obviously we wouldn't have made any different decision having known about it beforehand, but it was news when he was born. You've got a kid with Down syndrome. And then 14 hours later, another kick in the gut. He's going to have open heart surgery to save his life, in the next few months.
Wow.
So a lot of grief.
Sure.
And really learning, how to process that. And my wife did way better, a lot quicker to kind of get through that than I did. I mean, it took years. But the hardest part was I really felt like that I wasn't going to be happy again. It was a real strong kick, and I had it was a crisis of spiritual belief, Does the Bible really, did God mean what he said? He did. And of course he did. Yeah. Of course he did. And so it's like, I think about 2 Corinthians 12, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. And so that really has become a life verse for me. But I think it was like anything else. I mean, starting my job, which I called a business, but starting my job and having Jonathan, that all happened around the same time. So for the first time in my life, I was in over what felt like, over my head. I felt like everything that I'd done had turned to gold up until that point in my life. And so that was the first time where, starting a business, having a kid with special needs, where God said, you're not in control. Yeah. You thought you were, but you're not. Now, are you going to trust me or not? And I've had moments like that in my life, where he's had to bring me back to remind me of those things. So being this achiever, this guy. So it's been, I think, adjusting expectations about what success really looks like. And it's been about letting go of, in my own wisdom and kind of in my own mind, about what I think to do. And it's this relinquish of control that I'm not. God is sovereign and I'm not. And all of this has happened because he allowed it to. And so and our family would not be who we are and where we are and anything without it. So, it's funny, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
And it took me years to get there, Thomas. It really did. But I wouldn't change it because he wouldn't be who he is without that. Yeah. And we wouldn't be who we are without it. And God has shown me time after time after time, even in the unexpected things, that he's still there. He's never, ever forsaken me. And even in the hard roads, even in the darkest times, I've learned to trust his voice. And I sure like it when things go my way, better than the others. But I've learned to, that's what faith really is.
Absolutely. So I'm going to transition to growing up and kids, because I love talking about kids and raising kids. So one of the things that, you're not much older than I am, but you're a little older than I am. One of the things that our parents didn't talk a lot about in the 80s and 90s, two things: sex and money. How are you raising your kids differently than your parents raised you?
I think the first thing that comes to mind really is transparency.
Yeah.
I think it's about when things are dragged from the dark into the light, they can't fester. Mm-hmm. And so the greatest trick that the devil ever pulled on any of us was to convince us that we're alone.
Yeah.
And no one else struggles with whatever you struggle with, and so you should hide it, right? I mean, just think about the Adam and Eve in the garden.
Sure.
What happened?
Yep.
Sin enters the world, they hide. So I think, really just trying to be brave and bold with what we've, talked about our kids, Yeah. And so that's the first thing. So, and raising 3 boys, it's funny. I mean, we tried to, approach it from a very biblical and an age appropriate, way about kind of, hey, this is how we all got here.
Yeah.
This is the way that the devil, kind of takes what is beautiful and what God has created, and
right.
and none of us are, are immune from this struggle.
Sure.
So I think just trying to do that and to say, like, I'm not holding myself up as the superhuman standard or to perfection, but I'm broken just like you.
Yeah.
But the good news is we all serve this God who tells
Sure.
us how we handle that.
Yeah.
And what we do. So I think, just trying to be open with it and not being afraid to have uncomfortable or vulnerable conversations.
Have to.
Yeah. So I think that's the first thing. And, I would certainly do some things different differently
Like
now
what?
looking back. Well, probably just have some of those conversations a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, just earlier.
So we talk about this a lot. Obviously you run with the people that are in the same friend group as your kids a lot of time, whether it be ball games and things like that. And so we found out that we started talking to our kids about deeper conversations at like sex and just porn and things like that. 8 years old.
Yeah.
We were having those conversations at 8 and 9 years old.
Right.
Now I've got I'm 15, 12, and 8 right now. And so we've talked about those things
Right.
at length. But one of the things I figured out too is we have to keep revisiting those things because culture changes.
Right.
No matter how insulated we think our kids are, no matter how spiritual we think we can be sometimes, there's always a locker room.
Sure.
There's always a field. There's always a, whatever.
Right.
And some of the, to be honest with you, some of the craziest things I've ever done have been at church. So growing up in a youth group.
Guilty.
Being able to continue to have those conversations has been extremely paramount for us.
Right. Well, and two, transparently, I was exposed to pornography at age 8. That's interesting that I went home to play with a friend after school and who had an older brother in high school at the time. And it was like, look what my brother has under his bed. So I'm like living, and just you think about what that does to, an 8-year-old kid's, sense of sexuality and morality and all of those things. And so, it's like knowing that my wife and I tried to get ahead of some things, with our kids and really, I'm just trying to be vigilant, with, keeping it out of our homes. But, I think in today's age with how accessible everything is, it's not a matter of if, it's when. It's a matter of when. And so I think as parents, you've got to, our responsibility is to, as soon as it's age appropriate, with what you and what you feel like God is leading you to do. And there's a lot of resources out there, it's just to, be honest with your kids about what that is and explain to them, like, why did God create sex? What's the purpose of all of that? And so how do we glorify that, but we're sinful? Just being honest. So I think that's the key. Not being afraid to talk about things because, the way that our parents were raised in a lot of situations that just wasn't talked about at all.
What's harder, being a parent or being a spouse?
I think they're equally hard. And I think I'm better on some days, than others. But sometimes you can fake things with your kids. But there's not a lot that you can fake with your spouse.
How do we get past that? How do we get better at that?
Yeah, better. Yeah, because I don't know if we ever arrive. I think that it kind of comes down to this commitment just to be boldly honest before God, with ourselves, and to trust the person that we've committed our life to, to do that as well. And I'm not talking about like coming clean. You got to come clean, but it's not just that. It's like, hey, here's what I feel God is really revealing to me, showing to me. Here's what I really want. Here's what I want for our relationship. Here's what I want from our marriage. Here's what I want for our children. Here's what, and to make ourselves vulnerable, because marriage is, I always say it's a mirror, and I didn't come up with that. Someone did.
Yeah, sure. But it's true.
But it's true. It's a mirror. And so are we just going to go through life, kind of not ever really being, bold enough and brave enough to look in the mirror? So I think marriage, the most successful marriages, the best marriages that I know, are ones, that have this relationship with God. Like that's primary. Yeah. And then it's each other.
Sure. Absolutely.
And so, but that is a daily laying down. I am sorry. I messed up. I got this wrong. Let's recommit, and I think if we simply never, are always coming back and renewing that on a daily basis, moment by moment basis for that relationship. And it starts with this.
Sure.
If this isn't, then the spousal relationship won't, so it's abiding. It's John 15. It's abiding. And so if we're disconnected from the vine, we're going to wither. And then our most important earthly relationships will wither as well.
As we wrap up, where can someone reach you? You've got a wonderful story. You've done a lot of great things. Where can someone, if someone to just take you out for lunch or learn more about what you're doing or wanted to grow with you, where would someone reach you? Yeah, sure. So if you're in the greater Nashville area, we would invite you for a workout, right? Come sweat with us. I love it. So that's the first thing. And then, kind of personally, I'm pretty easy to find online, the Jamie Warren on Instagram, but also just jwarren@irontrapfitness.com. Perfect. For email. That's great. Thank you so much. This has been really, really good on so many different levels, from a business owner, from a heartfelt thing. And I'm really, really appreciative of you and your time, Everybody's time is extremely valuable. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jimmy.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.